And welcome back. All right, we're going to continue our series talking about the mistakes that people make in planning their retirement. And we've done several already. We're going to go to number 4, which is the menace of bad advice. So it's not really a mistake that the investor or the retiree or baby boomer makes. It's perhaps the unfortunate situation of having gotten bad advice. And sometimes people have a role in that by not maybe doing enough due diligence and working hard enough or taking a little more time to find an advisor that has what it takes, what's necessary to help them. People can mess up on their own. We make mistakes, but when somebody is asked to help you, you ask somebody to help you, and they do a poor job. They put you into things that are not appropriate, not right for you, that are ill-conceived either out of ignorance or lack of experience, or they don't have the latitude to recommend what's appropriate for you, or they simply are biased and only favor one particular approach. Well, that's worse than no advice at all. So I'm going to give you an example, real life example. This happened a few years back. And I, of course, always change the names to protect people's identities and change the scenario a little bit. But Hank came to me, and he had recently retired. He was in his early 70s. He had a $400,000 investment portfolio. Most people will agree, nice chunk of money. Hank said, in no uncertain terms, I need $20,000 a year, every year. It'd be nice if it increases for inflation, but I need $20,000 a year income from this $400,000. I'm not necessarily looking to leave a lot to my beneficiaries. That would be nice, but the primary goal of this portfolio is to give me income. I need to be able to count on it. Growth is secondary. So I said, okay, I understand. I said, well, tell me where you are now, what you have, and where you are, where are you coming from with this portfolio? What are you doing now? Because he already had the money invested. And we dug into what he had. I reviewed it, gave him a second opinion, because I always need to know where people are, where they're starting from before I can start giving them advice about what they should do. It's a little bit like trying to plan a trip. You can get anywhere, but you got to know where you're coming from, right? I mean, to get to New York City, well, where are you coming from? That will dictate the interstate you drive on or dictate the plane you get on. So we first looked at where Hank was with his investments. Now, here is, and I'm using this as an example of bad advice. He had 75 stocks. All $400,000 was invested in 75 stocks, 100% of his money, all large cap U.S. stocks. Okay, yes, he was diversified across those 75 stocks. No one stock dominated. What's that, about 1.5% per stock? But all U.S. stocks, all large cap, and all equity. So I asked Hank, I said, well, how do you feel about that? And how do you feel about what if the market goes down? I said, what if we have another 2008? And just to refresh everybody's memory, 2008, the broad stock market indices, that's what we call them instead of an index, we call them indices, they went down 38, 40%. So I asked Hank how he felt about that. He says, well, that's a problem if I'm drawing income. And Hank was kind of intuitively figuring out that, if the value of the portfolio went down a lot, that he wouldn't be able to draw on it like he needed to. He needed to be able to take this money out, and $20,000 a year, well, that's about about 4 or 5%, 5% of the portfolio. So the problem can only be explained a couple of ways. And so obviously, what I told Hank, there's other ways to do this, because I think that's a dangerous approach. But I really think it's a good example of where people can be, and if a financial advisor or investment advisor is pushing an approach like this, I look at that and go, something's not right. In my mind, it's bad advice. I'll just call it what it is. I think it's too aggressive. I think it is way too dependent on the market. I think it doesn't provide the opportunity for income. And it's only going to work if the stock market goes up every year. How often does that happen? Yeah, we'll get that for a little while. Then all of a sudden, we have a market correction or a bear market, and we say, oh yeah, that's right. The market goes down sometimes, and in fact can go down a lot. So the explanation can only be three things in my mind. Number one, the financial advisor advising Hank with this portfolio, giving him what I think is bad advice, is either inexperienced or ignorant. I'm not being mean, I'm just saying either doesn't have enough experience or just simply just doesn't know. Ignorance is just a state of fact. Not knowing something is what makes us ignorant. Doesn't mean we're dumb, just means he doesn't know. So that could be an explanation. You know, getting your insurance or security license doesn't make you a financial expert. It's the bare minimum ticket to get in the game. It doesn't convey much more than just a very, very basic foundation about financial planning and investing and insurance products and how all these things work. Bare minimum for licensing to satisfy either a state or national, federal level regulator, okay? So it's a start. So it could be just simply not knowing. Number two, which I find more often, is restricted situation. Perhaps the advisor advising Hank had restricted access to products and services. Maybe they were limited by where they worked or how they were licensed, kind of back to the first one. So the latitude of the advisor perhaps was lacking in that this particular portfolio and approach for Hank, maybe that was all the advisor could do. Well, if an advisor is severely limited, if their capabilities to advise you, the client, are very narrow, well, then it's not so much advice, because advice requires, let me look at your situation and tell you what I think you ought to do. That implies that the advisor has choices. If it's simply one solution for everybody, and it's always the same solution, that's like going to the auto parts store and saying, I need a muffler. They're not going to come back with a rubber ducky, okay? I mean, it's going to be a muffler. You're going to get what they have available. So the latitude is a big deal. So perhaps that was it. Perhaps that was the situation. Or third, and I suspect this was the case, because I kind of was figuring out who I thought the financial advisor was as I talked more and more to Hank. And it's somebody that I had seen advertised in various publications, and I know them to be biased in that they only recommend a certain approach. Everybody gets the same approach, and they shun vehemently, aggressively shun anything other than what they do. Anything else is just the work of the devil. So the point is that if an advisor is biased, if they have a preconceived set of recommendations that they're already reaching for when you walk in the door, again, I don't think that you necessarily are getting advice. You're getting somebody taking your order. Hi, welcome to blankety blank. Let me take your order. Would you like fries with that? Really? No, I'd like you to actually customize my order. Hold on, stop the presses. Okay? So this is all stuff that you need to consider when you look at how you're going to work with an advisor, because you need good advice, not bad. Do that, you'll plan stronger.